Japanese officials said on Friday that 61 people had tested positive for the coronavirus on a quarantined cruise ship in Yokohama, a steep increase from the 20 confirmed cases on Thursday.
Officials have screened 273 passengers they said were potentially exposed to the virus. The 41 new cases were to be taken off the ship for medical treatment.
More than 2,000 passengers on the Diamond Princess ship have been stuck inside their cabins for days as part of a 2-week quarantine. Meals have been irregular, and only on Thursday were small groups finally permitted to go outside and breathe some fresh air.
"I keep hearing painful coughs from a foreigner in a nearby room," one passenger wrote on Twitter on Thursday, noting with concern that crew members were delivering meals from room to room. "I might get infected today or tomorrow."
Other passengers who have been whiling away some of the time on social media told of more hopeful signs. One noted that supplies were being moved into the port and that ambulances were in position. Another said that entertainment crews had been visiting guest rooms to cheer people up, and that toilet paper had been distributed.
Of the 41 new cases, 21 were Japanese, Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare said. None of those 41 passengers were in serious condition as of Friday morning.
China's leader, Xi Jinping, spoke by telephone with President Trump on Friday morning to discuss the coronavirus epidemic, telling him that the government had spared no effort in what he called a people's war, according to CCTV, the state television network.
In the official account of the conversation, Mr. Xi made no reference to Chinese grievances over the Trump administration's response to the epidemic, including being the first foreign government to close its consulate in Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, and order the evacuation of diplomats.
Mr. Xi offered no words of thanks, a stark contrast to messages of gratitude the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been posting for other nations, including Italy, Poland, the Maldives and Pakistan.
Mr. Xi told his American counterpart that Beijing's efforts to control the outbreak were gradually achieving results.
"We are fully confident and capable of defeating the epidemic," he said, according to CCTV.
A week ago, the Trump administration announced it would bar entry to any foreign citizens who had traveled to China during the last 14 days, saying the coronavirus constituted a public health emergency even though the United States had relatively few cases. It now has 12 confirmed infections.
A spokeswoman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Hua Chunying, sharply criticized that decision earlier this week, accusing the United States of spreading panic and not doing anything to support China's fight against the outbreak.
The death toll and the number of infections continued to soar in China, according to official data released early Friday.
Nationwide, more than 70 new deaths and 3,100 new cases emerged in the previous 24 hours, the National Health Authority said.
The new figures brought the total number of deaths in China to at least 636. And the total number of confirmed cases rose to 31,161.
69 of the newly reported deaths occurred in Hubei province, the heart of the outbreak, the authorities said, but there were also 4 deaths outside of the province, 1 each in Jilin, Henan, Guangdong and Hainan provinces.
So far, the vast majority of confirmed deaths have taken place in Hubei, though deaths have also been reported in other Chinese provinces, Hong Kong and the Philippines. More than 200 infections have been reported outside of China.
Many doctors believe that deaths and infections in China are undercounted because hospitals and laboratories are under severe strain to test for the virus. Local officials in Hubei province, the center of the outbreak, have called on health care workers to speed up the process.
Many sick residents in Hubei also say that they have been turned away by overstretched hospitals, which lack test kits and beds.
There are currently no approved treatments for illnesses caused by coronaviruses. But as the outbreak shows little sign of abating, China is forging ahead with attempts to find one.
On Thursday, China began enrolling patients in a clinical trial of remdesivir, an antiviral medicine made by Gilead, the American pharmaceutical giant.
The drug has to be given intravenously, is experimental and not yet approved for any use, and has not been studied in patients with any coronavirus disease. But studies of infected mice and monkeys have suggested that remdesivir can fight coronaviruses.
And it appears to be safe. It was tested without ill effects in Ebola patients, although it did not work well against that virus, which is in a different family from coronaviruses.
Doctors in Washington state gave remdesivir to the first coronavirus patient in the United States last week after his condition worsened and pneumonia developed when he'd been in the hospital for a week. His symptoms improved the next day.
Still, company officials urged caution. It is important to keep in mind that this is an experimental medicine that has only been used in a small number of patients with 2019 nCoV to date, Ryan McKeel, a Gilead spokesman, said in an email.
This year's edition of Art Basel Hong Kong, one of the most important destinations in the international art market calendar, has been cancelled, with organizers citing the sudden and widespread outbreak of the coronavirus in China.
The fair was to run March 17 through March 21 at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Centre and feature premier galleries from Asia and beyond.
The decision to cancel Art Basel Hong Kong was an extremely difficult one for us, said Bernd Stadelweiser, chief executive of MCH Group, the Swiss company behind the fair. He said organizers had explored every other possible option, including postponing the fair, before concluding it should be cancelled.
MCH cited numerous factors, including the health and safety of workers and visitors, the logistical challenges of mounting the event and the escalating difficulties of travel to Hong Kong. 3 American airlines have suspended flights to mainland China.
Last week, as Hong Kong shut down museums and schools, and restricted flights from the mainland, participating dealers called for the closure of the fair.
On Wednesday, the London-based dealer Richard Nagy, one of more than 240 exhibitors at the event, sent an email to the organizers.
Not one of our foreign clients will be attending, and they are surprised the fair is still on. Mr. Nagy wrote, "There is absolutely no doubt in our minds that this art fair is now commercially on artificial life support." The email concluded that the fair was fatally wounded and needed to be put out of its misery.
Demand for flights to mainland China from the United States took a nosedive in late January as the severity of the outbreak became clear, according to data from the Airlines Reporting Corporation, an industry-owned transaction clearinghouse.
Sales, which were only somewhat lower early in the month, were down 59% in the fourth week of January compared with that period the year before, according to the data, which is based on 1.8 million tickets sold in January 2019 and 2020.
Ticket refunds skyrocketed by 534% that week, year-over-year.
Demand for flights to Asia showed a smaller decline of 18% in the fourth week of January, with the number of refunds up 215%. Airlines around the world have cited such declining demand in recent weeks as they have severely cut service to mainland China, with the cancellations spreading to Hong Kong in recent days.
Air China, one of the most active non-stop carriers between the United States and China, cited that drop in demand this week in a request for federal approval to sharply reduce service. In an emergency request filed with the Transportation Department on Sunday, the airline said it wanted to replace its current American flights with just 2 routes, one serving each coast.
One route would connect Beijing with Los Angeles and San Francisco. The other would connect Beijing with Kennedy International Airport in New York and Dulles International Airport near Washington. The plan omits existing service to Newark, Chicago and Houston.
In 2018, Air China carried more passengers than any other airline on non-stop flights between the United States and China. Of the 8.5 million people who flew on such flights that year, about 19% flew on Air China. United Airlines was number 2 with 17%.
Reporting was contributed by Daniel Victor, Imi Yamamitsu, Niraj Chokshi, Stephen Lee Myers, Denise Grady, Scott Rayburn and Vivian Wong.